Reconstructing Spirit Hill.
A lot of people, when they buy a farm or they decide to start homesteading, the vision is that it's going to be this great, wonderful experience. For us, it was, but it was also a lot kind of like a Chevy Chase, the Griswolds kind of meet the Money Pit, except for in real life, it's really not that funny. We had a lot of challenges with this project. We had some serious injuries that happened, major mishaps. We had financial issues that really kind of put us in financial ruins. And then to cap it off, we had a life-threatening situation that basically incapacitated Shauna for several months. What we want to show on our channel to people who are thinking about homesteading, we don't want to discourage it. It is a wonderful practice, but we want people to understand what kind of challenges they face. Could face. And we want to share those experiences with our viewers so that, even if there is a family out there who is struggling with some of these things, maybe we can provide them with some hope. Maybe there's something we say that will encourage them. I can tell you that with the things that our family faced, they are things that I think would have torn a lot of families apart. I never met a family with 2 kids who are as just amazing as they are to have gone through this whole experience, and a wife that is as courageous as she is to have been able to handle the things that we had to handle. So I guess we should start with what homesteading means to us, because you watch some channels and some people think homesteading is the ultimate survival off-grid, which I mean, our goal would be to eventually be completely off-grid and completely self-reliable, but we are also a modern-day family. Our kids go to school, they need access to electronics and things,
and we're blended families, so we have to also take into account the kids and their concerns and their wants and their needs, because there is a portion of the time that they are not in this home with us. So we have to be kind of a hybrid, knowing what we ideally would like to accomplish or where we'd like to be, combined with, we have a couple of kids who are not 100% 24/7 in our home, and one, our older daughter, is older, so she has spent a good bit of her life with all the comforts and the cush of modern society. It's a learning curve, and it is a bit of a, like I said, it's a bit of a hybrid that we've got going on here. So while there are elements that we would like to, like he said, be completely self-efficient on, there are other elements that we do enjoy that are extravagances or, a little bit more cushy elements of modern day living. So it's a little bit of both. My vision for homesteading, or my perception of homesteading, has kind of morphed the more we've gone through the project. I think initially neither of us set out with the active conscious thought that we want to be off the grid, self-efficient, like diehards. I mean, I didn't have that opinion. I don't know if you did or not, but I was just more going into the thought of we would like to have a place that was away from all of the hustle and bustle, that we could self-maintain to an extent, like gardening and things like that, and that we could spend a little bit more time enjoying the great outdoors, the beauty of nature. That's kind of where I think we started, more or less.
Yeah, and we definitely wanted to be able to grow our own foods and our own vegetables, because there's just so much in all the junk you buy in the store today. And
really
it's expensive too. I mean, there are a lot of the elements to homesteading that we immediately wanted to try and incorporate. I would highly suggest that if you're starting a homestead, not to jump the gun and just run out there after you buy your land and start trying to grow things or build things, because you're setting yourself up for ultimate failure. Or
unless you're experienced and you're prepared. So if you are setting out as a homesteader and the purpose of it is because you've done your research and you know what types of things you want to grow and the zones and the levels that it would be thriving in. Like if you have done your homework ahead of time and you're just waiting on the land, then yes, you can go out and start planting and going forth and doing your whole thing. But if you are novice and just have this kind of glamorized visual of, yeah, I'm gonna go be a farmer and I'm gonna put these seeds in the ground and everything's gonna be perfect and woohoo, then just take your time to find out other elements that you would need to know. Like,
on a side note, if your general store sells the magic beans that grow cows, they do not work. I bought them for Shauna. Yes, for Christmas.
That.
And she doesn't even remember that I bought them for her.
Look, a lot has happened in the past couple of years. Like,
they never grew. Anyway.
I didn't even remember that. Did you really?
Yes. In your stocking. Magic beans that grew cows. Black and white ones.
Oh, I think I barely remember that. We didn't even plant those, did we?
Never buying the magic beans again.
Oh, good.
So, the first thing that we did when we bought the property is we had an apartment. I had just sold my house to buy this property, and so we had to move all of our junk or all of my junk to the property. And we had a lot of dogs as well.
And storage units.
Well, a lot of our stuff went into the storage units. The dogs did not. So the first thing we did to help establish their place on the property was putting a place on site where we could secure them. We couldn't, utilize the house really for storage or anything, and so we found a spot that we thought would work for the dogs, hidden from the road, a view from other people, gave them a little bit of privacy.
Shade.
A lot of shade.
And some windy breeze. Like, it was a very nice, ideal location if you have to put, your fur baby somewhere. It was a good spot. But in the process of doing that, Charlie had a little bit of an accident. He was trying to clear away the area that we had picked out for the dog pen, and it was really overgrown. Like I said before, pretty much all of the infrastructure of this place was overgrown, so if we wanted to utilize a space, we had to really hack at it. So he had gotten his machete out. I had left and went to get lunch and was bringing it back. And whenever I came pulling into the drive, I didn't see him anywhere. So I was calling for him, I honked my horn. I didn't want to go wandering around because it's a lot of land and I had no idea which direction he was in at the time. I wasn't sure where he had started to clear things. I'm waiting for a few minutes and then I see him just kind of wobbling up, holding his knee, and wouldn't really say a whole lot. I was like, hey, I've been calling you. I was a little frustrated because he wasn't being very responsive, and he just kind of has this I don't know, he was kind of in shock. I whacked myself. Like, you whacked yourself? What are you talking about? He's like holding his knee like this, and I'm like, well, let me see, what is the problem? And he doesn't like blood. Like, he gets queasy. I told him to sit. I popped the back of my car open and I had him sit down on the tailgate, and he was sitting there and he lifts his hand and he had taken the machete and it went right into his knee, busted through the layers of skin and muscle, and it was like an open piece of, like an open access. I could see his kneecap and like parts of his knee. It was not bleeding, surprisingly, very much, like barely at all. It was like a clean.
It's a nice clean cut.
Whew! I I didn't know what to do. I luckily have a first aid kit that I keep in my car at all times. So I grabbed that really quickly. I had some butterfly stitches and I'm like trying to stitch this thing together. He's just laying back there just like, you know.
He's taking a nap.
But I stitched it together as best I could. It was just, I don't know. That was our first, like, in my opinion, potentially life-threatening situation. I asked him if he wanted to go to the hospital. He's like, no, I'm fine. And that's whenever I'm like, okay, how do I stitch this? Or like, what do I do? I feel like he needed stitches because it was serious business what he did.
It was slightly embarrassing to go to the hospital over.
A machete accident?
Yeah. You cut yourself. I whacked myself in the knee.
Not being careful.
Yeah, that was one of those moments where you're just kind of like, shoot. We had been trying to clear land a little at a time with machetes and bush axes, and it just became apparently clear to us that with 30 acres, the only possible way that we could maintain a property this size was with the proper equipment. And we needed something that was big. A tractor.
We were gonna get serious.
We got online, we started looking for tractors, and they're not cheap. Yeah, we didn't have the money for a tractor. What I ended up doing was I started surfing the auction sites. The tractor that we actually got was kind of a throw into the auction after the fact. So this was a Ford 3000, which is a great tractor for new homesteaders. It has enough power to operate a lot of implements, and it's a very durable tractor. That's why you'll see that there are a lot of Ford 3000s, 5000s, 2000s. You'll see a lot of them around still because, I mean, they're built Ford tough. And no, we didn't get paid for that. But we ended up buying the tractor at about $1,500, a little less than $1,500, which we ended up getting a brand new house brush hog for $400. We really couldn't beat the whole auction experience. And so that's kind of how we got into
That was our kickstart.
Yeah.
Was the machete.
The machete. The machete prompted us to get the right type of equipment.
Yes.
Another very important item that we had to figure out right when we bought the property was getting our wells to run.
We had 2 water wells on the property, but neither of them were operating. So whenever we purchased this, we took them on their word. So that was the next thing. In addition to getting some of the equipment, we had our animals on the ranch, so we needed to be able to provide a water source for them. We were hauling in, gallons of water from either the apartment or from the gas station down the road. I'm sure the gas station down the road got so much money of ours.
So we had to figure out how to hook up our submersible well pump to a portable generator to turn the well on. So we really had to figure that part out. We figured it out, and it worked. We ended up being able to operate our well pump, and then we had the well tested.
This was my bad.
Yeah.
So I, being the logical person that I was trying to be, I felt like it was necessary to have somebody professional test the water to make sure that we were getting the right pH balance and the right, make sure there were no icky chemicals. So I Googled water testing companies, called one of them up, had them come out. We paid them, $175? And never heard from them again. Only to find out that if you will go to your local county, they will do it for free. So there's another oops. And
to be perfectly fair, we both spent a lot of money on this project testing waters.
Figuratively speaking.
Yes, figuratively speaking.
Okay.
So at this point, we had set up the dogs, we had water running, clearing acres of land with the brush hog, which was really fun. And we were kind of to the point where we wanted to
do something, but because we couldn't actually do much more on the house, we had already done the demoing that we could really do. We had to wait for the contractor. So while we're waiting for the contractor, we decided to take up one of the hobbies that we've been, dreaming about and talking about, which was horses.
And so we both had, kind of a fundamental knowledge of working with well-trained horses. But
that is the key.
Yes.
Well-trained horses.
we can tell you from experience that a cheap horse or a free horse is a really bad horse.
It's just a bad idea. Unless you are experienced, unless you have been recently around horses and know the ins and outs of this animal, do not accept a free horse, because then it will end up eating you out of house and home and you can't do anything with it. And it could possibly hurt you.
To date, we've actually taken in a total of 4 horses, and in a lot of our videos you'll see that we have 3. But the 4th horse that we no longer have, his name was Patron. And Patron was probably one of the oddest horses that I think he was definitely one of those horses that a lot of people just cannot explain. There was something not quite right about Patron.
The lesson to learn with Patron, the thing that I would like to express, is that if you have not dealt with horses in a long time, please remember that they are extremely powerful animals that can really hurt you. I left the house ahead of everybody else, drove out here with carrots and peppermints, and got into the pasture to try to introduce myself. Now keep in mind, these are both horses that were supposed to be green broke. I should have been able to approach them and at least took them up to the lead line and do something with them in that capacity. So far so good. I went out into the pasture. I was able to hook up to Patron and I was able to begin to lead him. Then he started posting. So I thought, okay, he's just not familiar with me. He's not comfortable. So after I let go of him off of the lead line, I left him be and I started to approach Aria. Well, she is a mare and he was a gelding. And so whenever I would approach her, he would cut me off. I thought he was just wanting some attention or wanting more peppermints. So I would, pet him for a second and I would go around to try to, again, to approach Aria. Well, after the 3rd time of him cutting me off, I stopped and I was petting him, and then out of nowhere, he turns and bites me in the face. Now the bite knocks me backwards onto my tail, and as I'm falling backwards, I just see his back hooves going over my head. So he must have bit and then turned to kick.
We were at home, we were at the apartment. I was with the kids, and Shauna had been taking a long time, but I figured she was just enjoying interacting with the horses.
I could feel, blood coming from out of my mouth. I mean, it just caught me completely off guard. I got up off the ground and I, as carefully as I possibly could while keeping my composure, backed away from the horses and got to my car, assessed the damage. I had a tooth that was like dangling loose. Luckily, I had my retainer from when I had braces a few years ago in my car, so I just pushed that up in there and raced home. It was a horrible, horrible experience, very scary, and it's put a respect back into my mind as far as working with horses.
I mean, it really kind of put a respect into all of us, because these are animals. They have a different way of communicating. I was shocked because I had actually brought Patron in a trailer the night before. I had walked him out into the pasture. I wasn't aware of anything unusual with him at that time.
I know that there were things that I could have done better, that I should have done better or been more aware of. I was more green than the horse. So it luckily didn't do any major damage. I was very, very lucky. We learned some very important lessons and some potentially very dangerous ones. And that, be careful if you're getting livestock or horses, just anything like that, that you don't underestimate the power and the fact that these are wild animals.
So, but the horse situation brought up another important factor. So we decided that it was time to put up a fence. We have over 1,200 feet, or is it closer to 1,500 feet of road frontage?
Closer to 15.
Closer to 1,500 feet of just road frontage. And so we had to get a tractor auger. And buy a ton of posts and start putting up our fence line. We learned a lot about how to put posts in for a board fence.
It's the farthest orange. There's 2 dots, use the last one.
And how to properly communicate and walk away. We didn't agree about something or other, where the hole should be, or safety.
She and I together have built a lot of fences. So the fencing project actually was one of the things that went well for us.
We didn't actually make it across the front of our house. It's still unfinished. The way that everything seems to go for us in this project is, as we are in the midst of one thing, something else arises. So we kind of always have these
Reconstructing
other
Spirit Hill is
projects.
a lot like ADD.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there's always something else to pay attention to.
Well, that's something that I think that we're learning, is that there are so many moving parts to a homestead, especially when you're in the throes of creating, all the major elements. Holy cow. Whenever we were doing the fence building, we also came across another project, the
Imagine
ADD.
that.
So there was a structure at the road front covering an additional covering of a well house, or of a well. So it was like a well house without the sides, or like a fruit stand that you see on the side of the road. And it was obstructing where we were going to want to put our fence. So we had the bright idea, or I think you actually had the bright idea, to lift it from its current location and move it as one piece to a new location for our chicken coop. It was quite the interesting little quite the project. We finally got it moved and in one piece still, only to then realize that we cannot have chickens yet, or at the time we couldn't have chickens because there was this like chicken virus, something or other going on. So there was like lockdown on poultry. Nobody would sell you chickens, or you weren't allowed to, and if you did, it was like black market type. Hush hush, you're in big trouble if you buy a chicken.
So the chicken house became another incomplete project.
Yes, and it is sitting.
And now we're kind of debating on whether or not we want to use that for a chicken house or a different house building.
Yeah.
Because the idea of having a mobile chicken house
is much more appealing. Yeah.
So we're actually thinking now about taking our nice old super
Structure.
handy
Half structure.
trailer.
Oh, trailer. Yes.
Trailer, and turning that into a mobile chicken house.
Yes, so stay tuned for that because I feel like that's going to happen. That one may come to completion.
Our first time haying the fields was quite an interesting task.
I've never done that before. I had no idea the back-breaking labor.
If you enjoy just riding on your tractor for a long period of time, very slowly in the heat, and just watching the hay kind of fold down, it can be a lot of fun. Major learning experience. I have learned that I want to have animals that eat the hay, and I don't want to produce the hay. But hey. And you'll have a lot of fun cutting hay. I mean, we had fun. We gathered up all the bales, the kids came out, we got a big trailer, pulled it through the field. I mean, we filled that thing up like so many times.
It was rewarding,
Yeah.
because like you said, it was our first like official crop of any sort on the land, and it was just like something else that we attempted in the beginning of our homesteading ventures was a garden. Homesteading, a lot of people say that's the first thing you should do. Plant your, whatever it is that you want to grow. And we did try that. We tried to plant some berry bushes. They got trampled by Tell when he got out. We tried to plant a garden, but the soil composition, it's clay, is the top couple of layers. So it was very mucky, very difficult. It would get really dry and then really, really wet. We had a difficult time with that our first year.
The problem was, keeping it weeded again. We went way too big.
And we weren't here every day. It was difficult to keep up with when we weren't living on the ranch, able to maintain and keep track of everything. Which leads me to a decision we had to make about not being here on the property. We'd had an ATV stolen. We were having issues maintaining, the gardens. We were having issues with making sure that our animals were staying safe. Like, I was worried about that. Staying up late, trying to make sure everybody was okay and being worried about it. And then another big issue, the work that was being done finally on the house, it turned into a much bigger scope than we had ever anticipated. Long story short, we had to just put the brakes big time on the house, assess the damage and the situation, and whenever we came back with new bids, it was
more than double what the initial bids were. No permits had been pulled, so everything was in violation with the county, which the county was absolutely not happy with. Mm-hmm. At that point, we weren't grandfathered in on anything.
Everything had to come up to code. So we no longer were doing a restoration. We were doing a full-on
new construction.
When he said before, the money pit, you don't even know. Any of those things that we had in our mindset to accomplish, poof. We were more looking at how to have a home, period. The house was in worse condition than whenever we bought it, if that's possible. It was bad. We were in a spot, we had to do something. So the only thing that we could do is acquire a 38-foot pop-out camper. So we said our goodbyes to the apartment and packed everything that we could possibly into storage units. The rest we sold. Started a whole new chapter of this renovation. move into our new glamping home, we came into a whole other slew of challenges and conflicts that I would have never seen coming. Like, if you would, I did not sign up for that, but it also created some of the most beautiful things and made us so much stronger as people. So stick with us, and for the next installment of Reconstructing Spirit Hill, we'll get into the nitty-gritty of glamping with a family and the further construction. Seriously, this fly. We will get into the further construction and progress of